From the outside, Joanna Duggar and Alston Forsyth's life looked picture perfect. Their marriage seemed grounded in faith, hard work, and family. Together, they built a home that many admired, filled with smiling photos, warm captions, and messages about love and gratitude. But behind the carefully shared moments, life was far more complicated. The couple had slowly drifted apart, not because of any one event, but due to the quiet distance that grows when two people stop fully hearing each other. Alston threw himself into his construction work, long days and late nights, determined to provide for his family. Joanna admired his dedication, but began to feel the weight of solitude. The constant responsibilities of parenting and home life often left her exhausted and unheard. When her parents called to check in, she smiled and said everything was fine, even though she sometimes felt invisible. Alston, meanwhile, sensed the distance but didn't know how to bridge it. He told himself that this was just a season of life. Every marriage has highs and lows. But in truth, something was changing between them. Conversations became brief, laughter felt rare, and at night, though they shared the same bed, they often felt miles apart. Still, online they presented unity. Photos from family outings, cheerful posts, and smiling updates. To the public, everything looked perfect. But for Joanna, those posts began to feel like another chore, a version of happiness she no longer recognized. Her family noticed the change. Her mother gently asked if she was all right, but Joanna brushed it off with a practiced nod. In their family, personal matters were meant to be handled privately, through prayer and reflection, not public discussion. Yet her prayers started to feel unanswered. Alston believed that staying calm and avoiding confrontation was a sign of strength. Joanna saw it differently. Silence, she realized, could also mean growing apart. The breaking point. As weeks turned into months, the strain deepened. Small disagreements over schedules or parenting began to reveal deeper emotional divides. Joanna felt unseen. Alston felt unappreciated. Their once effortless connection now felt fragile. She started spending more time visiting her family, finding comfort in their familiar warmth. But even then, she couldn't fully escape the worry in her mother's eyes, or the quiet questions from her siblings. Everyone hoped she was doing well, but she wasn't sure herself. Eventually, Joanna reached a turning point. One night, after another misunderstanding, she realized that love alone wasn't enough to keep things the same. They both cared for their family, but the relationship they once knew had faded into formality. It was then that Joanna made a choice, not one born out of anger, but out of a deep desire for peace. She decided to take time apart, to reflect and rebuild her sense of self. A new beginning. For Joanna, the months that followed were filled with both sadness and renewal. She spent her days focused on her children, finding comfort in the small, ordinary moments, laughter over breakfast, bedtime stories, and the quiet stillness after they fell asleep. Each day was a reminder that healing takes time. The Duggar family, known for standing together through every season, supported her decision privately. They understood her need for independence in quiet reflection. Alston, too, began his own journey of self-examination. The separation gave both of them space to grow, understand their choices, and focus on what truly mattered: faith, family, and the well-being of their children. Rediscovering strength. In time, Joanna's heart began to heal. She learned to appreciate her own voice again, to dream, to hope, and to build a new sense of purpose. The pressure of appearances slowly faded, replaced by authenticity and gratitude for the second chance at life's simple joys. Her story became not one of loss, but of quiet resilience. Through faith, family, and courage, she began to rebuild, not as a wife defined by expectations, but as a mother and woman discovering her own strength. A life renewed. Today, Joanna's world looks different, slower, calmer, more genuine. The spotlight that once felt overwhelming has dimmed, replaced by the comfort of real life, family meals, laughter, and the steady rhythm of healing. The story of Joanna Duggar is ultimately about finding peace after change. It's about rediscovering what it means to be whole, to live with honesty, gratitude, and hope for the days ahead. From the outside, it seemed like Joanna Duggar and Austin Forsyth had it all. From the beginning, their partnership was shown in a perfect light. In the midst of tradition's protective embrace, two young people with firm religious views started a beautiful family. To those who followed them online, they were an example of love, faith, and family values. The photos and videos they shared were filled with happiness, positivity, and an unshakable sense of calm. But what individuals post online almost never reflects reality. In reality, the mirth had been dwindling for a while. Even as the distance between their residences shrank, tensions remained high for reasons that eluded them. Austin never slowed down. He got up bright and early to work on construction sites, spoke with clients all night long, and replaced the constant hum of his phone with heartfelt conversations during family dinners. After a long day, Joanna, who had been proud of his commitment to his work, became lonely. The continual demands of the children, the housekeeping, and the people on either side of her seemed like she was slipping away. Whenever her parents contacted, they would respectfully inquire about Austin's well-being. Where does the marriage stand? Does your church attendance remain the same? While chatting on the phone, Joy would act as if nothing was wrong. The emptiness she felt on occasion was easier to feign than to articulate. Austin knew her gap existed, but he didn't know how to bridge it. Neither was he harsh. His mind was elsewhere, and he belonged to a culture where charity took precedence above personal connection. He reassured himself that she was just tired, and there were highs and lows in every marriage. But he could feel a subtle crack opening up between them. Where it had felt strong before, now it was shaky as glass. Nighttime was when things got the worst. Despite sharing a bed, there was an eerily calm intimacy between them. When Joy was in love, she used to feel completely alive. But today, that sensation has completely faded. It was not uncommon for her to lie awake at night and gaze at the ceiling. There was always tension or misunderstanding whenever she tried to have a conversation with him about how she felt. Even when she tried to clarify, he drew farther and farther away from her. On social media, they smiled for the camera, shared family vacation photos, and labeled them with blessings and expressions of gratitude. Their adoring admirers were evident from the thousands of likes and comments praising their stunning combination. But Joy knew those likes weren't reflective of her life anymore. Every post seemed like a falsehood that she had to accept. The change was noticed by her relatives. Michelle, her mother, tried to ask her quietly whether she was okay. With a quick nod, Joy had repressed her emotions. Whether it was over religion, family, or marriage, the Duggars would rather not argue in public. Confidentiality, quiet, and prayer were to be the means by which matters were to be settled.
but Joy began to feel as if her prayers were resonating with the walls. Through it all, Austin was steady, reliable, and distant. Quietness, in his view, was an indication of stability, and he thought it was strong to avoid tough confrontations. The most silent form of heartbreak, according to Joy, was the slowest. Days turned became weeks, and weeks into months. As their physical separation deepened, it became as if two complete strangers were living together and trying to win each other over. They were too chicken to admit it just yet. The end was on the horizon, though. As the months went by, the formerly amicable split between Joanna and Austin became increasingly strained and fractious. The prior quiet was broken by the sound of two individuals desperately holding on to something that was already giving way. Joy tried to keep herself occupied. She engrossed herself in handling the errands, tidying up the house, and creating short films for her admirers. No amount of faked grins could alleviate the ache in her chest. The light rising outside the kitchen window would make her feel as if her life were happening somewhere else, and she was only a bystander on certain mornings. In contrast, Austin had grown colder. Though he meant no harm, his tolerance had finally run out. It seems like every conversation ended with misunderstandings. What Joy called loneliness, he called complaining. His definition of business was what she had described as neglect. They no longer could meet mouth to mouth. They ended up fighting and causing more harm than good. As time went on, the nights got worse. About time, they were more vocal in their disagreements about minor matters such as schedules, economics, or parenting decisions. But there was a more significant concern at its core. What they said was less important than what they actually felt. They seemed like they had to put on an act to keep up appearances of their once natural relationship. Even so, Joy began to withdraw. She started going to see her parents more often, and she took comfort in her brother's fame as chaos there. Still, she couldn't escape the whispers, her mother's worried expression, and the unanswered questions. Everyone in the family valued marriage and would stand up for it if necessary. Contrary to Joy, she was tired of battling alone. At that point, the pivotal night came. Antagonizing comments escalated into a more serious issue than either side had bargained for. Austin said that Joy was unappreciative, and Joy said that he was never there. The sound of one of the kids' cries echoed through the house. That noise utterly crushed Joy. Realizing the damage their silence had caused, she trembled as she retreated from him. Austin skipped saying his goodbyes the night before he left for work, bright and early the next day. Joy, perched on the edge of the bed, stared at the empty space next to her. It became clear to her that love was no longer the glue that held them together. Rather, it was shame and their shared past. Neither of them could restore what had already been eradicated. That week, Joanna Duggar did something no one in her family had ever expected her to do. She called the lawyer. For the first time ever, she decided to prioritize calmness over outward appearances. A chain reaction started when Joanna Duggar decided to end her marriage, something neither she nor Austin could have foreseen in full. Something that had been a domestic dispute was about to be seen by the general public.